Hi everybody, and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you are new, I'm Corie and I'm really excited you're here because I am doing a bow tutorial today. Please forgive the mess in the background. I'm still reorganizing my craft space, but let's just get right into the bow making. I'm going to be doing 7 different types of bows. Some of them have a similar look to them, but I'm going to be using different sized ribbons as well as different methods. I'm going to be using double-sided ribbons, reversible ribbons, as well as single-sided ribbons. So should give you a lot of options that you can work with. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so the first one that I am going to show you is a finger bow. And a lot of you probably already know how to do this. It's a very simple bow. Usually you do this with a piece of twine or with a jute cord or something of that nature that's going to be a little bit thinner. You may have seen me do this with, I'm trying to think what I've done, baker's twine recently, but you're gonna have something that's gonna be thinner, okay? And you are going to hold onto it with your middle finger and your thumb to start, and then you're just gonna wrap it around your pointer finger, and you can kind of wrap it underneath your thumb there, and you're just gonna wrap and wrap and wrap. Okay, and you do this as many times or as few times as you'd like to get the fullness of a bow that you are looking for. And you notice that I was able to take my thumb away once I'd wrapped it a few times because the end of my twine is tucked in underneath there. So after a little bit, you can take your thumb away and then you move really, really quickly after that. So once you get it as full as you want, and I wasn't counting there, I probably wrapped it, I don't know, maybe a dozen, maybe a dozen and a half times, but get it to whatever thickness you want, trim it off, okay? I'm gonna be pinching it in the middle, okay? So you're gonna pinch it right in the middle. And if you need an extra set of hands, you can certainly, use a little clamp to hold this for you, or you might want to keep a twist tie nearby that you can just twist around it. But then you're going to take another piece of whatever material you're working with, and you're just going to cut off, I'm going to cut off maybe a 6 to 8 inch length. All right, so I've got that, okay? And I'm going to tie that around the center of my little wrapping that I did. Hopefully that makes sense. And I'm going to set it down on my table. Here, I'm trying to make sure I stay in frame for you here. And you can see it's not going anywhere, right? So you really could have even just set it down if you wanted to. I tend to try to hold on to things just in case. And I'm just going to tie a simple knot. Now you can see I don't really have it in the middle there right now. Can you see that? It's not really centered. So before I finish tying off my knot and making it really snug, I'm just going to play with it a little bit. And I already did make it a little bit too snug, so I'm going to loosen that up. And I'm just going to line it up so that it's in the middle, right? And once I am satisfied that it's in the middle, and I always joke about my perfectionism showing, so you can even fold it in half and kind of play with it and see if you've got it in the middle, right? So once you're satisfied that you have it where you want it, then you're going to pull it tight. Just pull it really tight, and then just going to knot it again. Okay? And there's your little finger bow. Okay? And like I said, you can make these as full or as loose as you want. I mean, if you make it really super full, you can actually create a pom-pom with this method as well, right? So if you want to have a little pom-pom, just keep going and going and going and going and going. You could even wrap it around a little piece of cardboard. If you cut out a piece of cardboard, you could do it that way as well if you'd rather not wrap it around your fingers. And then you're going to tie it off in the middle just like that. And for a pom-pom, you would clip the ends, right? And so for your finger bow, I mean, honestly, if you wanted a messy finger bow, you could clip the ends as well. And there you have it, all right? And you've got your little tails. You can make those as long or as short as you want. but I think this is super, super cute. And when you use the baker's twine, that gives it some color and some pop and just a little bit more interest as well. But this is just a really simple, easy bow. And I use these every so often. I'm sure if you've watched my channel for a while, you've seen me use them. So there is your finger bow, okay? So now I'm gonna do a simple flat loop bow with burlap. Okay, so this is burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. So it's a 9-foot length of ribbon, and obviously this is for the winter, right? And so what I'm going to do for this, and this is going to just be a very simple flat looped bow, and you've probably seen me do this as well. I used wire ribbon for the one that I'm thinking of, but this is not a wire ribbon. This is just a very plain ribbon, okay? And so what I'm gonna do is create a few loops, right? So I'm gonna make this a 3-layer loop ribbon. You can do as many layers as you want. So if you wanna make it more elaborate, you certainly can. So I'm just trying to think about how I wanna do my base loop. And I probably should have put down my cutting mat so that I can measure these for you. Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick so that I can show you exactly what widths I'm doing, because I know you guys appreciate when I share measurements, and I tend to be really bad about that. So I happen to have that here. Here we go. So I've got my burlap ribbon. Again, this is not a wired ribbon. And I'm gonna make my first loop, and I'm thinking, because I'm doing this 3 layers, I think I want to do it about there to start. So if I take a gander at this, 14 to 23 and a half, let's make it 24. So if I do my loop to be this wide, this is a 10-inch width, okay? So this is 10 inches right here for my bottom loop. And I'm trying to stay in frame, okay? So 10 inches for my bottom loop. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make sure I've got my seam. I'm gonna keep that in the center, right? Because I wanna be hiding my seams eventually. So I've got that. I'm gonna go ahead, and if this were a double-sided burlap, you could alternate it back and forth and do it that way, but I'm just gonna keep this real simple for this demonstration, okay? Especially since this is a single side ribbon. So I'm going to find my center again, right? And if you use something that has measurements on it, you'll be able to help yourself with the center there. So I'm between 14 and 24. That means 19 is my center, so that's here, okay? So I'm gonna use that as my guide. I want this part in my center. So I am going to put a little bit of hot glue. I'm gonna put a dab in between each of my layers here. Be careful not to burn yourself, especially if you're using ribbon that has holes in it like this one does. I know you guys are always like, why aren't you using a little spatula, or where are your finger protectors? But I'm really bad about it. So my finger protectors actually are here with me on my table, and I'm just opting not to use them. But I do encourage you to stay safe and do what you should to not be burning yourselves. Okay, so I've got that nailed down, and I probably should have a little piece of parchment paper under there so it's not sticking to my mat, but I'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, so that is my first loop. So now, because I had my first loop at 10 inches, I'm gonna do my next loop. I think I'm gonna do that at, I'm trying to think, where do I want my final loop to end up? 10, 7, I think I'm gonna do it at 7 inches. And see how that looks. And a lot of this is trial and error, right? And it depends on what kind of craft you're putting these on, or if you're putting it on a package, right? So 14, that's 14, plus 7 is 21. So I need to bring this in a little bit. So that's my 21. So let me see. And generally speaking, so normally I don't bother measuring these. I'm doing this because I know you guys do appreciate having the measurements. But if I were just doing this in my crafting, I would just eyeball it. So if you are someone who likes to eyeball things, have at it, because you certainly can just do these by eye and making sure that they are turning out the way you want them to. Hopefully that makes sense in what I'm saying. So before I commit, I just want to make sure this looks like a good fit. And I think that is, I think I'm going to actually make it a little bit wider. So I encourage you to adjust as necessary so that they look the way that you ultimately want them to look. Hopefully you're following what I'm saying on that. Okay, so okay, that's a little bit better for my eye. And this is coming in at really closer to 8 inches. It's like just shy of 8 inches. Okay, so I'm going to cut this off again, and I'm going to secure it to the center here, right? And I'm going to want to make sure that I'm using my center mark again. Again, you can just eyeball it, coming in with a little bit of hot glue. Probably am adding more glue than what is really even necessary, but it makes me happy. So I want to make sure that this is even on either side. It looks like it is. And just securing that down. Okay. So there's that. And now I'm going to make my final loop. And for this one, I really just want it to finish there. So I want it to be like a little bubble. And I'll tell you how I end up measuring out on this, but I really want to do it by eye because I'm visual. So, and I think a lot with crafting tends to be visual. There's not a lot of precision. Well, you could argue that there's precision, but I tend to craft on the fly, as you may have heard me say. So that looks about right to me. So I'm going to trim that off, and then I'll tell you what the dimensions are. So here I am. This is 3 inches. Okay, so I had 10, 8, and now I'm dropping this one to 3. And I'm gonna put that right in the middle there. So I'm gonna actually, because I think it'll be easier for me once I start tucking this in there, I'm gonna secure my ribbon with the hot glue here first. Just a little bit of hot glue. There, and then I'm going to tuck this in. Now you don't want to press down on this because this is going to be your final loop, right? So you're going to leave that bouncy. Okay, and let that cool for a minute. Now you can leave it just like this if this is how you want it for whatever it is that you're working on. So for instance, if you have a frame and you are just putting it at the top, right? Or if you think back to the Give Thanks Always stacked block project that we had done in the fall, this is something that could look really pretty on top of something like that. And then you don't need tails. But if you want tails, you certainly can add them. As I peel this up off of my working surface here. Okay, so here's our bow, right? You can see how it looks from the side and the top, right? Okay, so now you certainly can make tails, and in that case, you're going to cut 2 lengths. Well, yeah, in this instance, you're going to want 2 lengths because this is a single-sided ribbon. Otherwise, you could, if you had a double-sided ribbon, you could make a V shape and have one length. But because I'm working with a single-sided ribbon, I need to cut it twice. So I'm going to decide what length tails I want. And I think I'm going to do it about the same width of my ribbon when it's fully bounced out. I don't know if that's really the way that you would describe it, but instead of having it flat, I'm letting it be poofy. And I am going to cut my tails to that same width. So at this point, with it all poofy, I can tell you, poofed up, this comes to about 9.5 inches. So once it's poofed, I lost about a 1/2 inch on it, okay? So that's really what the length of my ribbon is here, is about 9.5. And I'm gonna do that twice because I want 2 tails. Now there are a couple of different ways that you can finish the edges of your ribbons. I tend to like dovetail. That is just the way that I usually go. That's just my preference. You could also just cut things at an angle, and that is also very pretty. It really just is your preference. So if you want to dovetail it, you've probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but you're just going to fold your ribbon in half, right? Lengthwise, fold it in half lengthwise, and then you're going to trim it from the inside to the outside. Doesn't matter if you go from the other direction, but I usually start on the inside and I go high on the inside, so further up my ribbon on the inside, and low on the outside, so towards the end of the ribbon. And that's how you get your dovetail, right? So now our ribbon is dovetailed or angled if that was your preference. And I'm going to attach my, oops, I didn't have enough hot glue on there. I'm going to attach my tails to the bottom of my ribbon. Okay. So when I pulled that up off of the table, I think I left some of the glue with it. So let me do this. And you know I always leave my oopsies in for you guys because hopefully you'll learn from my mistakes. So let me grab a piece of parchment paper that I always have here close. This is from the Dollar Tree also. You know, they've got these pop-up sheets. Sorry for that noise. So I'm gonna put this under here. I found that the hot glue doesn't really stick to it, which makes things a little bit easier. That up, put a wallop of glue on there. I'm gonna angle my tails the way that I want them. Okay, okay. Finger protectors. I have some Dollar Tree ones here somewhere too, but want to make sure that's nice and solid this time. Probably could have put this right on top of there because there was an awful lot of hot glue right there. Set that down on there. And see, I just messed up again because I should have, I don't know if you probably can't see it from this angle. I should have covered that up, right? I didn't, so I'll just have to trim that off when I'm done, right? So making sure that this is on there nice and solid now. And then I'm going to put I'm running out of hot glue. This is real, you guys. Real life here. So adding a whole bunch of hot glue this time so that I don't have my ribbon fall apart on me again. Making sure that that is centered. And there we go. All right, and then you do want to just make sure you let that cool. And I put a sufficient amount of hot glue in there. I can feel it coming through even through to the top here. So that's going to just help to secure this whole thing a little bit better. And you'll see here that I can pull it right up off of the parchment paper. It's still cooling. Okay, And then I'm going to trim off these little ends that are sticking out that I wasn't real careful about when I was focused on putting the ribbon together there. So cutting that off. Okay, so there is our flat loop over ribbon, if you will. Okay, so there's that one. So now I am going to do a single-sided ribbon again, but with the rollover method. So I have this really pretty ribbon that I had picked up from Costco. I believe it was last year. Look at how pretty this is with all these little reindeer. Isn't that nice? So this is a single-sided ribbon though. So I have to be careful. I can't be going back and forth with it, right? So that's not gonna work. So I'm going to be looping it around. And again, you can make these whatever size you want, okay? So I'm just going to loop it around itself. So I've got, that's one loop. And you can make as many or as few loops on this as you want as well. That's two. That's three. I'm gonna do, do I wanna do four? Let's do four. Okay, and there is four. Now, this might be a little bit small for what I'm trying to do, so I'm actually gonna make my loops bigger. And again, play with it. Make it what you want it to be. This is your craft, right? So to make it bigger, I'm just gonna pull my loops out. And this is a wired ribbon. With this type of a ribbon, or a bow, excuse me, wired ribbon probably is best because it allows you to manipulate it much more. Okay, so now I'm just gonna keep on pulling it looser until I get it to about the width that I want it visually. And I will share with you what I end up with here so that you can learn from what my thought process was, if that makes any sense at all. Okay, so the reason that I keep expanding it is that I'm thinking about when I put it together with its tail in a minute and what I want that to look like. So if you make it too narrow of a ribbon, I know I'm making this look a lot harder than it is, you guys. If you have a, here, let me start over. So if you have too narrow of a ribbon, right? So if it's here, like this, and then your centerpiece is gonna be as thick as this, right? So when you come in with your tie, and this will bunch up a little bit, but you want enough room for your ribbons to be able to expand. Now, if I weren't doing so many loops, I might be able to keep it this narrow, but if I'm having 4 loops on either side, there's not gonna be anywhere for it to expand, right? So I wanna make sure that my ribbon is wide enough so that when I come in here with the tail ribbon, back around here. When I come in with this wide ribbon, I have enough room on either side for my ribbon to expand. Okay, so this is actually a better width. And here I am at, this is about 13 inches. Okay, you could probably do 12 inches, but I'm gonna keep it at 13. Huh, lucky 13, right? Okay, so I'm going to do my loops again. So there's one. There's two. Nope, that's 3. I can count 2. So that's 3. it's a little twisted because of the way I took it off of the spool. Okay. And there's 4. All right, so I'm gonna kind of overlap it a little bit with the other end. So if you can see here, I've got my end in here. I'm gonna make sure I've got about 2 inches overlap at least. Actually, I'll probably do more like 4 inches overlap, because when we do this, we wanna make sure we catch our ends when we put the center together, if that makes sense. So again, we're gonna keep that part in the middle. Okay, we've got our looped bow. Just making sure all of my loops are the same width here. Okay. Now what you can do, if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, you can staple this right here in the middle. Okay, so you can find your center. Sometimes people find the center by folding it in half like this, right? And then you could staple it right there. Now, some people also will notch their ribbon. I don't always do that, but I'm gonna do it here for demonstration purposes. And then they will use a chenille stem to tie it off. So I'll go ahead and notch this, and it's just a little tiny notch. I would say maybe 1 centimeter, you know, like 1/4 inch, maybe. You see there? So not a lot, not a big notch. Hopefully you can see that. And you're gonna do that on either side of the center. And you wanna make sure your ribbon is all lined up so that you catch all of the layers there, right? So just a little notch. Hopefully you can see. Can you see that better? That's the extent of the notch. You don't need to be going in real deep. And the reason you do that is that it'll help seat your chenille stem. So I'm really excited. I got this huge package of chenille stems from ARTEZA. The link is in the description box if you are interested in a coupon code for them. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. This is like so many different colors of chenille stems. I was super excited to get it. There's everything from just regular colors to silver and gold. So they've got blingy ones in here. Oh, look at this. I'm gonna have some fun with these. Okay, so just gonna find one that is going to kind of blend with my ribbon project here. So I'm gonna choose this one that's like a light brown, like a camel color, okay? Set that aside. Now I'm going to start on the top, right? Putting it through my notches. Make sure you're just like letting it grab into your notches on either side, right? And then flip it over and pull it tight. And then you're just gonna twist. Now, listen, if you don't have chenille stems or don't want to purchase them, Dollar Tree also has chenille stems. I was there earlier today. I noticed they have a pack of 45 for $1. So you can certainly get them at Dollar Tree as well, or use a twist tie. You know, take it off your loaf of bread and use a twist tie. That will work as well. And it's gonna be hidden, so you're not gonna see this later. What I do like about the chenille stems is that they're longer. So if you are gonna use a twist tie, try and find an extra long one, because this will help secure your bow to your project, okay? So I've got that taken care of. I've got it all twisted tight. Of course, I twisted it opposite of what I normally do, so I want to make sure I don't untwist it when I'm trying to do that some more. Okay, so now you can either start fluffing out your bow or you can put your tails on it. I'm going to go ahead and put my tails on it now. And again, I'm going to double the width of my bow. Now you can make your tails nice and extra long if you want to. You can do these as long as you want. Actually, I might just make them a little bit longer. So I'm going to do triple the width of my bow. I'm just doing one length. Cut that off. So one piece, I should say. That's triple the length of my bow. and I'm going to tie this around. So I'm going to flip it. You can lay your bow flat out on your table if you want. We're going to straddle our chenille stem because again, I'm going to make sure that I have this stem available to me for attaching this bow to my project later, right? So simple knot here, okay? So cross over just like you're tying your shoes, okay? Just making sure that this is the way that I want it, okay? And I'm not gonna make it super, super tight because I don't need it to hold my bow together, and I want to preserve some of the ribbon itself, right? I don't want it all scrunched up in the middle. So I'm going to just tie it fairly loosely, and I am gonna knot it. But let your chenille stem do the work as far as holding the bow together, right? You don't have to make your what are these? Your tails do double duty. That's not necessary for this, okay? So I'm going to flip my tails down and making sure. Now, naturally, the way that I had tied this, I wanted to flip them this way. The reason I flipped them that way is because I was paying attention to the direction of my deer on the front of my bow, right? And I don't want my deer upside down, right? Because I think that, again, perfectionism. But I was paying attention to my deer, and I want them to be upright. And I'm kind of pulling them down so that they're kind of more centered on my bow. And then I can adjust my knot on the back a little bit. Because again, I'm just particular, right? There's nothing wrong with being particular. Okay, and then twisting my tails so that the printed edge is going to show on the front side. Okay, now of course, because of what it is, I do have some of my deer are upside down. Now, if I really wanted to be a perfectionist, I could like trim this off and flip it around and do something with it on the back. I'm not gonna get that crazy, but I am gonna dovetail my ends. Actually, for this one, maybe I will leave them at an angle so that we have another option for you guys. Because again, it's perfectly fine if you want to angle them, and you can angle them going in or out, whatever your preference is. I'm trying to decide how I want them to look. I'm trying to picture it. I want them with the shorter angle on the inside, I think. And if I change my mind later, I can certainly change it. But that's how I angled them, okay? So you can see my angled tails. Now I'm gonna fluff out my bow, okay? So you literally just pull your pieces apart. So your loops, you're just gonna pull them out. And your chenille stem, because we made that notch in there, is going to hold that nice and secure. So you're not gonna risk having the bow slip within the middle section, if that makes sense. So you won't end up with your bow loops getting larger or shorter on you as a result of pulling this all apart like this. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. Pulling my loops out. And fluffing them out. And now you can see why we want to use the wired ribbon, because if you were just using a regular ribbon, unless it was a really stiff burlap possibly, your ribbon is just going to kind of lay flat and collapse on itself. So it's really important. I'm going to flip these because I don't like the way that that's going. It's important for this kind of a bow to use the wired ribbon. Okay, and then you just play with it until you get it the way that you want it and the way that looks pleasing to your eye, as I always say, right? And you can pull them back and forth in different directions. And there you have it, okay? So that's a simple rollover method for a single-sided ribbon. Okay, so Now we're gonna do a back and forth bow with a double-sided ribbon, okay? So with this, I can just go back and forth, right? So I'm gonna wanna make this probably about the same width again. So I'm gonna aim for about 12 inches on this one. Okay, and going this way. So there's my 12-inch mark there. And then bringing it this way. So you can see how I'm just kind of going back and forth, right? Using my hand to hold that. I'll use my hand to hold that. How many loops should we do for this one? That's 3 on that side. You just want to make sure you have the same number of loops on either side. Let's do 3 for this one, okay? So that is my center. Looking for my inside end, okay? I'm gonna cut this off. Okay, so I've got my bow here again. Now you can do the little snips if you want to again, and just do it the same way that we did before. In fact, I think I will do that just because that actually worked out really nicely. So I found my center and I'm going to snip it just a little bit. And I mean, if you go in a little bit further, it's not the end of the world. You just don't want to be going like halfway through your bow, right? So there we go. I've got that snipped. I'm going to cut off another length of my bow, or my ribbon, excuse me. Get that ready. And then I'm going to use another chenille stem. Just grab one. I'm going to just grab a green one real quick here, because again, this will be hidden and it looks pretty with this ribbon anyway, even if it were to show. So tuck it into my little notches so you can see that it's seated in there. That actually, with this ribbon, is probably helping you see that a little bit better too. And I am going to pull it tight at the back and twist it the way I'm normally twisting it this time. Okay, so twist that off. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing that I just did before. So I'm going to spread out my chenille stem, because I'm going to be straddling it so that these remain available to me to add this to my project later. And I'm going to tie my little tails onto my ribbon. And this ribbon seems a little bit stiffer. It seems like I don't need to knot it a second time, so I'm not going to bother. Seems like it's going to be just fine, just like that. Okay. These I am going to dovetail. So, and you can do them one at a time. I'm just doing them together because why not? It saves a little time, right? And again, so I've got it folded in half lengthwise. I'm going to start high at the middle and go out to the end. And then we've got our dovetail. Okay. And this I am going to tuck in because I'm not liking that showing. I probably should have made the other side my front. So when I did this, you might have noticed when I started with my end on the inside and then I went back and forth. So that actually is hidden in here. You can't see it, right? And so you know what? I'm gonna just flip this around. So this is easily fixed, right? Taking this off, I am going to untwist my chenille because otherwise it's going to bother me. I don't want that showing, and I wasn't being careful, right? So you can see on this side, I don't have anything showing because my end is on the inside there when I did my ribbon, when I started my bow, okay? So hopefully that's making sense. So I'm gonna do this again, starting on the good side. I'm going to tuck my chenille stem in. I'm gonna twist it again on the inside. Again, I always like to just try and share my mistakes with you, learn from my mistakes. And, you know, I was commenting with some of the people that had mentioned this themselves, and I always learn more from my mistakes than from when I do things right. Because when you do something right the first time, what have you learned? Okay, well, you did it right. But when you do something wrong, you know not to do it that way again. So you've learned something, right? Okay, so now I don't worry so much about this end because it's in the back, right? Okay, so gonna come back, going to tie my ribbon around here again, flip this the other way. I'm not sure which side I had going, but it's all good because it's a double-sided ribbon. Okay, tie it tight again. Okay, all right, there we go. So now it's the way that I want it, okay? So now I'm going to, again, fluff my ribbon out. Okay, so this one's got 3 on either side. And you can tell it's a slightly different look to it than the other bow that we made before, right? So this one, you can have it, this one would actually probably be really pretty with a bunch more loops, right? I only did the 3 on either side, but you can see how with the back and forth method, you can make this really round, full bow. And I'm wishing that I had done that so that you could see, but I think you get the idea. But you can see the difference, right? So this was the looping over method, and this is what you can do with the overlapping method, right? So, but with the overlapping method, again, you really want a double-sided ribbon. It's not gonna look right if you do that with the single-sided ribbon because you're gonna have, I mean, unless you want that sort of an effect, right? Because I do have, well, I was gonna say really what you'd want for that is a reversible ribbon. So like I have this ribbon that could be really cool with that back and forth effect, but then you'd really have red all on one side and green all on the other side. So maybe that's not such a great idea after all, but you do you, whatever makes you happy, right? Because ultimately that's why we're doing this. We do this to have fun and be happy and enjoy ourselves. So we did the rollover, we did the back and forth. Okay, so now I'm gonna do what I call the angled bow. I don't know, maybe this could be the Corie bow, I don't know. But I am going to show you what I do when I'm doing a gift, right? So these are super cute boxes that I just picked up from the Dollar Tree. And I just thought that I would use one of these to, and actually I've got a different one that I actually already picked out because it goes with my ribbon. So, but look at how cute these are. And so I might be crafting with some of them, but I just thought that these were really, really pretty. So we're going to make a gift real quick. And you could certainly gift wrap these as well. If you have just a regular package that you're gift wrapping and want to, you know, just make a really pretty bow for it, you can certainly do that. So this will work for whatever it is that you are packaging up, right? And depending on the size of your package, that is going to really dictate the size ribbon that you want to be using. The ribbon I have picked out for this might be a little bit wide, to be completely honest with you, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, so for this, I have this reversible ribbon, and I am just going to do a bunch of angled loops, okay? Let me set my box aside for right now. I'm doing angled loops, and this loop is about, 6.5 to 7 inches, okay, from the tip of the loop to where my thumb is holding it, okay? So I've got that, and now I'm going to loop it back again, okay? And I just want to try and make sure that I'm keeping my loops the same on either side, right? So this bow is probably a little bit more advanced because sometimes it takes a little bit of maneuvering to get it the way that you want it, okay? But all things are possible with a little patience and desire, right? You can do anything you set your mind to. I honestly believe that. Where there is a will, there is a way, always. Okay, and I'm kind of, so this is a little bit kind of like the loop over method. It's just that instead of looping it right over top of itself, I'm angling it so I'm creating my loops as I go. Does that make sense? If you have questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I will respond to your questions. These days it's taking me a little bit longer to get through all of the comments. So if you really have a pressing question, you can also contact me on Instagram, and I may be able to see that a little bit better, especially if you are responding to a response that I have made on one of your comments, because I don't get notified the same way on the responses. So for instance, if you comment and I respond to you, and then you respond to my response, hopefully you're understanding what I'm saying, I don't get the same notification that I get when you respond when you comment at first. So for whatever reason, maybe I just haven't figured out how to see those properly yet. So I sometimes miss those. So if you have asked me a follow-up question or something of that nature, don't hesitate to ping me on Instagram or send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. I will always, always respond to you as soon as I'm able. If I don't see it, obviously I can't respond. So forgive me if you have reached out to me and I have not responded to you. Because I intend to respond to every single person. Okay, so I've got my loops here, right? And now I'm going to take my ribbon. You notice I am not using the chenille stem for this one because I'm just not. And then I'm going to tie this off at the back, just a simple knot, right? And it will try to pull your loops a little bit, so you just have to kind of play with it. And this ribbon is super silky, so it wants to kind of pull away. So I'm going to hold on to that and just tie that off. This is a wired ribbon again. And I'm trying to decide if I want to have green or if I want to let that red show. I might just let that red show. So now you notice I've got 4 tails here, right? And I love having extra tails on my ribbons sometimes. So I'm just going to play a little bit with my loops, make sure that they are the way that I want them. I'm fluffing them out now. And again, this is similar to that loop over method. Okay, and I am going to dovetail all of my ends. I am going to make my top ends a little bit shorter, and I'm going to leave my long ends a little bit longer, my underneath ends, I should say, where the red is. I'm going to leave those a little bit longer, so it kind of gives that layered look. Isn't that pretty? I'm liking that. Give me a woohoo in the comments if you like this ribbon and the way that it's looking with the two-tone. Okay, so getting these lined up. Okay, there we go. And you can always trim off extra. So I always encourage leaving more fabric than less in the beginning, right? Okay, so there is that. All right, so now with my box, I'm gonna decide where I want this. I think it looks pretty there, but I mean, you certainly could put it in the middle, but you're going to cover up if you've got a box like this. If you have regular gift wrap, have at it. Put it right in the middle. I think I'm going to put it here. I'm covering up some of it, but I think people will get the idea, right? Okay, so for this, I am going to use a ribbon this way, making sure that it wraps around. Now, if you have a flat stapler, again, that would work for this, I encourage you to use it and just staple this, right? I do not, so I am going to use my double-sided tape from the Dollar Tree, which I am loving, and I am going to run this right down my ribbon, okay? And I'm going to pull it tight and put it right down over top of it. Now, I probably could have used hot glue too. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use my little tape. Okay. All right, so I've got that there. And now I'm going to do the same thing going the other way. And my box is empty, so it's not giving me some of the, what's the word I'm looking for, tautness that I normally would have had if I had something like an actual gift inside of here. So that's why my ribbon is looking a little bit bunchy on the outside. All right, cutting this off. So that it's the right length for this. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I've got it where I want it. To use my tape again. Pull it tight and fasten that down. Okay. Now, sometimes what I do, and I probably should have done that here, done it here to demonstrate, and maybe I'll do it again just so that I can demonstrate this, because I think it's a neat trick. And maybe I'll have the red on the outside for this part of it. Okay, so if you want to, and again, this is a little bit more advanced, right? If you want to, you don't have to tie your tails when we did. You could wait until this part, get your tail ready, make sure you've got enough length to work with, okay? So this is a neat little gift wrapping trick. So I'm going to, I want my red showing this time, I've decided. So I'm going to take my ribbon, I'm going to tuck it under, let me get this out of the way for a second. I'm going to tuck it under all of my ribbon stuff here, okay? Slide that on through, okay? Now I'm going to tie on my bow, right? So I'm going to start to tie it. But now I don't want this ugly knot up here, right? So I'm gonna take my tail, I'm gonna tuck it back underneath from where it came from without untying what I've just done. I'm gonna grab it from the other side. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing, okay? So I just pulled it through from the other side, okay? So here's the knot that I tied. I took the one end, I tucked it through, okay? And now I've got the two ends. This one started out over here, and this one started out over here. And I'm just flipping it. Now when I pull it tight, do you see that? Do you see what just happened? Now my knot is underneath. Now the knot is underneath, and it secured the bow to my package, right? So that is underneath, and I'm okay if this flips green for a second, because what I'm gonna do, once I have it, I'm gonna flip it back through this way, so I have both of my tails on this side, okay? So now we've got our bow attached to the package. We have our pretty tails. I've got another one that's trying to peek out there that I'm going to tuck under. Okay, and this is how they do it at the department stores, okay? So when I was in high school, my first job was working for JCPenney. And during the summers and the holiday seasons, because I continued working there while I was in college, so for breaks, I would try to pick up as many hours as I could. And often that meant that they would put me in different departments. And I got to work in customer service and the gift wrapping department. And that is where I learned how to do this. Okay, so this is exactly what they do in the department stores. So if you want to have a package that looks like the department store wrapped it for you and something really, really special, this is all you have to do. Okay, and then you can kind of make it, because it's, again, it's a wired ribbon, right? So you can make it really fancy and bunching it, yeah. Or you can leave it a little bit simpler, whatever you choose to do. But there you go. And now you have a really, really pretty packaged gift. Super cute, right? I love this. Okay, so there is that one. That was our angled bow. So now I am going to make what I call a messy bow. And you can do this with a bunch of different sizes. I'm gonna do it with these little small narrow ribbons. I think these are, what, like a 3/4 inch? It might be, they're between a 1/2 inch and a 3/4 inch. I don't know if it says on here what they are. They might refer to it as a 1/2 inch ribbon. Nope, 0.65 inches. So yeah, it's between a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to take a few different styles that are going to complement each other. So I've got a bunch of reds. I was wishing I could find more greens, but I didn't find a whole lot of green ribbon at Dollar Tree so far. Have you guys found green? But we're just gonna make a messy bow, okay? So I've got my ribbons, and I'm gonna be cutting these probably, well, let's take a look in a second. I should have opened all of these up before I started filming so that I didn't have to waste your time watching me open ribbon packages here. But okay, so let's see. How long do we want to make our messy bows? Let's make them, yeah, let's do 10 inches, okay? No, let's do 8. We're gonna do 8 inches. So 14 plus 8, that is 22, right? Yeah, so right about here. Okay. So I am going to angle these, okay? I'm going to cut off this end because it's folded over, and that's my 8 inches. And I'll just use this as the template, okay? So start out with 3 of each and see where that gets us, because I've got 4 different ribbons here. So if I do 3 of each, and they don't need to be perfectly the same size, you guys. So approximate is perfectly fine. 1, and I can't count because I only did 2 of the other one. 3. Okay, let's do one more of this one. I'm just too excited to get into the ribbons, okay? So I'll do 3 of each. I'm gonna cut off this end, make it nice and neat. Got 1. Not a very good cut, so I will fix that. 3. This ribbon does not want to cut straight. There we go. There we go. I will clean up my little scraps in a minute. Did I do this one? Not yet. 1, 2, And these are not wired ribbons, you guys. These are just plain old ribbon, and you can make this type of bow with any kind of ribbon you want. It could be wired, it could be regular. I think I actually would prefer a regular ribbon for this type of a bow. I'm gonna kind of layer this in. So here we go. Because I have mostly red here, I'm going to use my white to tie this off, making that a little bit longer. And again, I'm just going to find center and tie this off in a knot. I'm not, as you can see, trying to line everything up perfectly, because again, this is just going to be a messy bow. This would look really cool if you used like rag strips too. You could do a messy bow with rags. Okay. And I might have actually made this even a little bit too long. So do what makes your heart happy. But this is my messy bow. Okay. It out. I'm going to twist them in different directions. Okay, so messy bow. All right, so there's that. And then I have one other bow I'm going to show you. And this is just going to be a giant, simple bow. Okay, very, very simple bow. So I have this beautiful ribbon that I've gotten from the Hobby Lobby when it was on clearance last year. And I'm just going to make a very, very simple bow. Now, because of the width, again, you always want to take into consideration the width of your bow so that when you're doing the center, it makes sense. Now, because this is going to be a simple bow, I'm probably not going to make it as wide as I normally would. This ribbon, by the way, I believe is a 6-inch ribbon. Yes, this is 6 inches wide. Okay, so I'm probably gonna leave, what was I thinking, about 6 inches on either side. Is that 6 inches? What have I got here? 10. No, it's actually more like 5 inches that I was gonna leave. 6 inches would be here. I guess, yeah, let's do 6 inches on either side. So 6 plus, I'm gonna allow maybe 3 inches for the middle plus another 6. 12 plus 3, that's what, 15 inches, right? So all in all, the width would end up being about 15 inches. Let's see, where am I at here? That's 15 inches right there. Okay, good eyes. All right, so I'm going to trim off my ribbon, making sure that I've got my overlaps going with the ends, right? So I realized after I had this all done and recorded that my camera stopped recording right in the middle of this bow. So I'm splicing this in, forgive me. Essentially all I did was take that loop, and here I can undo it, take the loop and I just tied a knot around the middle of it, just like I did before, right? So you just want to take your time with this type of ribbon because it's so wide that you don't want to completely lose your form. So I've got my ends tucked in here, so they're going to be completely hidden, right? So you can see them overlapped here in the center at the back, and then just going to tie a knot. And yes, I have a different set of clothes on, which will miraculously switch back to what I was wearing before because of this little edit that I'm splicing in. So see how it just kind of all went shoop when I tried to pull that tight. So you just want to take your time and work with the ribbon. And because this is a single-sided ribbon again that I'm working with here, you just want to manipulate it so that your tails are going to be facing the right way. So you're just going to pull it tight and work with your bow as you pull it tight to make sure that it is maintaining the form that you want it to have, okay? But you just keep pulling that tight, and then of course you can see I also had dovetailed my ends when I was off recording. So I hope that makes sense. So I've got just my simple bow, and you can just kind of play with the loops a little bit. And something else I think I had mentioned that didn't get captured was that if you find that your bow loops are not remaining puffed out like this, the way that you want them, you can ball up a little bit of tissue paper, and you'd want it to be a similar color to the ribbon that you're working with, and you can just kind of tuck that right inside the loop, and no one will be the wiser, as long as you don't use a whole lot, and you can just make it in such a way that it won't be seen. So just work your magic with your center, making sure that it's the way that you want it, puffing up your little loops on either side, and you've just got a nice, giant, simple bow. This little guy doesn't want to cooperate with me this time, so I'm gonna twist him a little bit more the other way. But working with the wired ribbon, it's always, sorry, I gotta see which way he wants to work here. Working with the wired ribbon, it's great for manipulating it and getting it to go where you want it. And again, I'm making this look harder than it really is because I undid it and then I redid it again. So but hopefully this has given you the idea of what you want to do. Because now I'm like completely pulling my loops apart. Real life, you guys, right? So, okay. I definitely had it better the first time, but I think it's still pretty. Okay. So there we are for our bow tutorial. And now we've got some bows that we can set up and use for various projects. Thank you again for watching. So that's the bow tutorial. I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up. Leave a comment for me and let me know if you found it helpful, if the bows were what you had in mind, if there's something more that you'd like to see, or if you have a question. Like I said, I am more than happy to respond to your questions, so ask away. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.